You wake up and you're awake in the middle of the night. The natural thought often is, oh my gosh, I'm awake. I'm not going to be able to fall asleep. I'm going to feel really cranky tomorrow. I'm not going to be able to do work, and it's just going to be terrible. And, and absolutely, there are consequences of not sleeping. It has a negative impact on our immune system. It can increase your risk for a lot of different conditions like diabetes, heart disease, even cancer. But in that moment, that one night, it's going to happen. What's going to happen is going to happen. While you're working on making changes and trying to train your body to sleep, one night, thankfully, is usually not going to wreck everything. So to be able to say, okay, I'm awake, but that's okay. I'm going to be okay. And I'm not discounting how stressful it can be. What I am wanting to emphasize is that anxiety about not sleeping makes it harder to sleep. Nobody wants to feel the anxiety, but that's what we're dealing with, right? We need to decrease the anxiety. So you recognize that it's a situation that we can deal with. You can recognize that if you've had difficulty falling back asleep for an hour, if it's getting to be 55, 60 minutes, it is better to get out of bed. You don't want to just lay there fighting it. Get out of bed, try to do something calming, whether it's like listening to music or drinking some tea or doing some breathing exercises. I'll provide in that handout. I can email it out. Some specific suggestions on things to do to try to calm down your nervous system. And then when you're feeling more ready to fall back asleep, you get back in bed. Now, there's also something kind of interesting about that waking up in the middle of the night. Scientifically, I looked at research, and scientifically, it really does seem like we should stay asleep. Like that really is, the goal. At least continue that cycle of sleep, deep sleep, shallow sleep, deep sleep. Getting up in the middle of the night and staying up for hours on end probably is not the best thing. Before we had electric lights, which I'm not that old, so I don't remember, but before we had artificial light, when the sun went down, there wasn't a whole lot that people could do, right? And so it was not uncommon from the Middle Ages up through probably like pioneer days. If you've ever seen Little House on the Prairie or something, they'd go to bed. I don't know if it was like 7 o'clock, sun goes down, they'd go to bed. They'd sleep for 3-4 hours, get up in the middle of the night, stay up for another 2 or 3 hours, and then go back to bed. There was even a New York Times article recently about segmented sleep, which is this exact same thing during the pandemic. Some people working from home, they have this flexibility, and they were finding that they'd fall asleep, be asleep for a while, wake up in the middle of the night, maybe do some yoga, just relax, have some quiet time, and then they'd go back to sleep for another 3-4 hours. So we know that it's something that people did for centuries. It still may not be the healthiest thing, but the point I want to make is that people did this for centuries. They survived. They didn't die from it. It wasn't the end of the world. Our bodies are able to function that way. It's probably not the healthiest, not what you want, but I do think that it can be reassuring if you find that your pattern is waking up in the middle of the night and staying up. There may be a way that you can make it work. So just to follow up on some general recommendations for what we call sleep hygiene, things that I hadn't mentioned would be temperature. generally our bodies like to, or colder temperatures in the room are conducive to sleeping. So if you find that you're too warm, that actually can be a, struggle to fall asleep. Or if you wake up in the middle of the night and you're hot, that can be a factor in sleeping. Recently, I myself found something called a chili pad, which is like this mat that goes on the mattress that has like water that runs through it. I mean, it's like contained, but essentially it really is like an active cooling system. It takes heat away from the body. I think it's wonderful. Kind of pricey, but I'll put a link if it's something you want to look into. Definitely, especially for people who maybe have trouble getting the temperature in their bedroom to be controlled, whether it's the design of the place you live in, or, the temperature, like in my house, if it's too cold in my room, if it's too cold in my room, then it is absolutely frigid on the lower floor. And, I turn my daughter into an icicle. So I'll put the link for that. I mentioned light. Light makes us want to stay awake. So having a dark space to sleep generally is going to be the thing that helps. For people who work at night, I think most of them know quite well that blackout shades are your friend, because your body wants to have dark. And that is an important thing for helping you sleep. I mentioned the issue with trying to have a consistent bedtime, consistent wake time. Part of that is also that you want to minimize the number of times that you hit snooze. Because what that does, if you're laying in bed and hitting your alarm over and over, is that it's just giving you disrupted sleep toward the end of that time that you're trying to sleep. And that is either interfering with time when you could have been sleeping more deeply, which you need in order to be healthier and restored, or you get to lighter sleep, your alarm's going off and over and over, and then your body actually tries to get back into deeper sleep, which just makes it that much harder. So, you want to minimize minimize using the snooze button. And then a final thing I wanted to comment on is a lot of people have smartwatches. One of the main reasons I got a smartwatch was that I thought it could help me with sleep. So I was really curious about this. I looked into it. What seems to be true about, whether it's Samsung Watch, Apple Watch, Fitbit, there's some other very specialized devices. More than anything else, they seem to be accurate in telling you how long you were in bed and how much you moved around. From research, it seems that they're not really that good at telling you, were you in REM sleep? Were you in deep delta wave sleep? Were you in more shallow sleep? Because it's just based on movement. The kind of the correlation is that when you're in the deepest sleep, you don't move around. Your muscles are relaxed, and you shouldn't be kicking and screaming, which is, again, a whole other complication. So what I would say is that using a sleep tracker is really great for seeing what time did I get in bed, what time did I get out of bed, was I really restless through the night, and that itself can give you some cues about what's going on with your sleep, and then give you a chance to come and discuss it with me or somebody else who may be able to assist you.